Yeah, so when I think about my approach to spirituality, I don't think about it rooted in the phrase itself, but there is this recognition that, like, if we focus on Black people, we will just fix the outcomes for everybody because the outcomes for Black people are just so bad. So you think about, what does it mean that in places like New York City that 90% of the people arrested for marijuana are Black and brown? We know that is a disparate outcome. What does it mean that 70% of the kids arrested for jumping over turnstiles are Black and brown? Like, if we actually make the system equitable for people of color, it will just necessarily have to be equitable for everybody else. When I think about faith, I'm most interested in what does it mean to fight in the absence of salvation? That when we think about the civil rights movement, it was so deeply rooted in a win that wasn't about this earth, but about something bigger. And when you are rooted in salvation, that is necessarily something in which you imagine and dream. And if there's anything I worry about in this moment, is that when we have a movement so deeply focused, not in a faith community, that some people have forgotten what it means to dream and like how we imagine a better future. That's what I think of when I think about faith. When I think about this notion of what does it mean that there are people identify as Christians in this work that we are also challenging and pushing around justice, is there was a protest that happened in St. Louis a while ago, maybe in 2015, that I was present at, that was organized by two incredible women. And it was a Black church protest. And what we did is that we showed up to some churches that hadn't done anything in the movement, and we had signs and we hummed "Wade in the Water." That's all we did, standing outside of them. One called the police on us, one came out and blocked us, and one church stood with us. In the signs that we had that day were things like Mike Brown was the least of these, right? That Jesus was a protester. And the reason we did that was to remind people two things. One is that the term social justice is redundant, that there is no justice that's not social, that the essence of justice is necessarily about how we're in community with each other. And the second is that Jesus was like deeply rooted, or like the Christian faith is deeply rooted in this idea of equity and the idea of justice. That we think about the difference between accountability and justice is that accountability is what happens after the trauma. Justice is the fact that people should never have to experience a trauma in the first place. So when we sort of challenge people around their faith about how they show up in Christ, it is rooted in like there's no way to think about justice without understanding that Jesus was a protester. Yeah, I would say very, very gently that, the Jesus that I understand to be real is not a white man, right? That what does it mean that we can conceive of a Jesus that had woolly hair, that lived in a place where the sun was shining bright and definitely was bronzing his skin in a way that was not white. So part of it is like, how do we tell a story of a people in a more complicated way? And how do we tell a story of faith in a way that is true to both the lives that we know people lived before and the lives that we deserve? And like, what does it mean to really understand that there is no justice that is not about a world bigger than this?